Okay, this is another video to Brock. Now, Brock, like many creationists, takes a shotgun approach to delivering their rhetoric. In other words, they throw out so many arguments that you can't expect someone like me to really answer them all. And it's because we just don't have the time. It takes far longer to refute these creationist claims than it does to just regurgitate them out, like Brock has done with these, because, like I said, these are old creationist claims that Brock has simply regurgitated. Hasn't even taken the time to digest them first. So, heading off with this, I'm going to deal with the with his claim about the peppered moth and Darwin's finches. He says they're still moths and they're still finches. Well, yes, Brock, but the genome of those two organisms are different. And the process of evolution is simply a change in the allele frequency over time in a population. And guess what, Brock? The process of evolution is a fact, because we observe it all over the place, even in human populations. So, that's a fact. The process of evolution is a solid fact. Let's deal with the mechanisms. There's two primary mechanisms to evolution in today's modern synthetic theory. Not the old Darwinian theory, which the synthetic theory is built upon, but modern synthetic theory, though creationists like to deal primarily with the old Darwinian theory of evolution simply because they think it has holes in it. Excuse me. But they rarely deal with the modern synthetic theory of evolution because, well, I don't really think they understand it because they're unwilling to learn about it. But in the modern synthetic theory, the two mechanisms are the original mechanism promoted by Darwin, which is natural selection, and genetic drift. And by the way, synthetic theory of evolution deals heavily with incorporating genetics into the theory of evolution, just to put that out there for people who aren't certain. So we have the two mechanisms, natural selection and genetic drift. And again, both of those things have been observed countless times. They are, again, a fact. So we have three facts in regards to the theory of evolution. We have the process, we have the mechanism of natural selection, and the mechanism of genetic drift. The last thing, this is where the model of evolution comes in, where it becomes a real theory, is this predictive power. Given the facts, the process, and the two mechanisms, at least two, there's actually more, but two mechanisms, you can make a prediction that things had to have changed over time. From that, and looking at other elements, like in Darwin's time it was simply anatomical comparisons between organisms, taxonomic comparisons. Today we look at genetics. We see that many organisms appear the same, appear very similar in many ways. Kind of like cousins in a human family. They're so similar that they didn't have the same parents, but they likely had the same grandparents. So that concept of descent from a common ancestor came into play. And now this one can be a little bit more difficult to show, but we've seen speciation occur before. So we've seen things like papians, a mosquito species in London subway tunnels that has diverged into two species. The one that lives above ground and one that lives almost exclusively underground. We've seen speciation in plants. Plants speciate a lot, they really do. We've seen speciation in laboratory stocks, such as the Drosophila stocks. Those things have been bred into so many different species that I've lost track of myself. I don't really look into Drosophila much. Or how about the E. coli experiment that's been running for 12 years? Well, with bacteria, we don't deal with the concept of species so much, simply because they don't reproduce sexually, they reproduce asexually. But we've seen this base stock of E. coli branch out into many different lineages, and some of those lineages are so different from the original stock of E. coli that I'm not even sure they should be referred to as E. coli anymore, except in keeping the fact that we know that they came from E. coli. So with evolution, we have all this evidence, and I mean, we really do. We have the facts that I mentioned, the fact of the process, the fact of the two mechanisms, the primary mechanisms. There's also the other smaller mechanisms that are involved, and we have the predictive side of it. from these things we can predict that yes, there were common descent. From that we can predict, well, we should find evidence of common descent in, say, fossils, and we do all over the place. The most recent one is Ardipithecus. I talked about that, been reading about it, being really careful about studying this because I'm planning to do some videos on it, where we show that where they've shown that Ardipithecus has a mosaic of features of both derived, and what is expected to have been in the last common ancestor. Pretty much smack dab in the middle. It also has some features that we didn't expect, which is a great thing. That's what we like to see in science, things that we don't know, so we can find out something new. Or we also have transitional fossils like Tiktaalik. Tiktaalik is, well, it was almost a semi-aquatic, semi-terrestrial fish. It had a wrist joint, it had elbows, it had lungs, but it was still fully fish-like in many other respects because it still had gills. It appears to have had a post-anal fin-like tail. You know, what you'd expect to see in a transition from a fully fish-like ancestor to a tetrapod walking on land. Plus, we also have Acanthostega and Ichthyostega and several other areas in that transitional period. So the prediction was descent with modification. We look back in time, we should see forms that look like a mosaic of features between the descendants and what we expect to be before them, and we see that. We also see speciation events occur, which is basically descent with modification but in the other time direction. So we see this occur as well. So Brock, I'm sorry to tell you, man, but you're absolutely wrong. We have the facts. We have the predictions that have been verified time and time again. And these are big predictions. I mean, there's some minor predictions that have been falsified, and the theory has to be slightly modified to accommodate those things, which is how scientific theories work, by the way. It's not a failure in science. The fact that theories can change to accommodate new information is actually the strength of science. But the theory of evolution, 150 years from the old Darwinian evolution through to synthetic theory today. Not a single contradiction that falsifies the theory. Not a single one. Nothing. Yet thousands upon thousands of pieces of data all supporting it. Observed instances of speciation supporting it. Observed transitional forms in the fossil record supporting it. Observed geographic distribution as expected when a population enters a new habitat. We've observed it. The process actually occurring in real time, we've observed it. The selective mechanisms, we've observed them. The genetic mechanisms, we've observed them, etc., etc. Everything is supporting this theory, Brock. Thousands of pieces of information. We'll literally actually say millions. And you think your little rhetorical comments about moths and finches, or some of the old errors due to ambition and misidentification, really has any impact on this theory, Brock? No. It's an entire failure on your side. But I still hold to what I say. Learn about the science, Brock. Don't talk about it unless you know about it. And right now, you know less than most 5th graders. I should know because I teach children of that age. Of course, then again, you're all the way over on the East Coast in Pennsylvania. Or was it Pennsylvania? Something like that. I've heard someone else mention it. Maybe they just didn't teach evolution sufficiently well in your primary schools there, which has led you to, well, know little to nothing about it. So read, Brock. I've given you a couple books to read. Evolution, What the Fossils Say and Why It Matters by Prothero. And for the creationist side, which is not really so much to deal with evolution, but the Counter-Creationist Handbook by Mark Isaac. It's actually featured on Talk Origins, but it's a good book to have in your hands. And that's just 2. If you want more, I got them, Brock. I got a lot of them. I'll give you some more. Oh. No. That's the creationist Trojan horse. I thought it was one of the other ones. Oh, here's one. Just one of the several I have. That one might be good. It's a rough guide. Might be just about perfect for you, Brock. Okay, everyone take care. Hopefully this hasn't gone over time.